And I am Neil Dunne.
And we are the founders of Andrson, a digital A&R tool that uses AI to directly connect artists with industry executive based on sound-based search. So that means that if you're the head of a label and you want to find the next Georgia Smith, you ask Andrson to find you matches and we deliver them to you on a percent-based likeness. But we're not going to talk about us today. We in general about how we can use all of the tools that use breaking AI in the industry to bridge the value gap that happens on both sides of the industry.
100%. And just before we get cracking, to anyone who's just joined us, please feel free to engage with us in the chat. Drop us a message. I'm going to do my best. This is our first time doing a digital conference, so I'll do my best to monitor it. Can't promise anything. And to the extent that you want to converse and continue the conversation afterwards, please feel free.
So I think the first thing that we have to do when we talk about how we can use AI is acknowledge the problem that we want to use AI to solve, right? Which is that now more than ever, there is a massive data explosion that's happening in the industry. So much so that people on both sides of the coin don't really know where to look, what to look for, and how at each moment. And as a result, which is not something new for the industry, right? Artists are, per usual, getting lost in the shuffle. So to use a relevant statistic, of the 2 million artists on Spotify, only about 1% of those make a living.
Exactly. And not to overstate, but the global pandemic hit the music industry really hard, to the extent that now musicians and industry are now locked up at home. So in terms of live discovery, that's decimated. And the music industry is now focusing on digital first, on AI first. So it's really brought that to the fore. Now, what we're really going to talk about as well is how, if technology and AI solutions focus more on the music, there's a bit larger opportunity to capture and benefit off this gap. But I think to get to where we are today, probably important to look back, as it always is, and ask how we got here, but also to ask the age-old question of whether technology as a whole has been good or bad.
And I think the answer is that it's both, right? I mean, if we think about the tools that have been made available to us and the genre forwarding that's been enabled by tech, it's been incredible. Labels, not much of a metal label that like. And for artists, especially independent artists, I think you can really say it's because in a way, it completely shattered what we knew about the industry. Like the great thing about Napster, for instance, was that I could go on and download the Baby One More Time music video in 3.5 hours. And not only that, but it managed to answer the same question for my parents and but the bad thing is that it enabled prescriptive music production and creation, right? Like really led to further homogenization of the music industry. And so now we're at this crossroads where data-driven music versus music-driven data is the norm. And in order to make music discovery enjoyable again, in order to make the greatest ROI possible, we can use this new AI to really give way to this music-driven data.
100%. I think it's also great to make note of the likes of Minu books that Ariana Grande uses, which are incredible, that allow AI-fueled harmonicization live. But I think to really hone in then again on this gap, I think it'd be good to talk about what progress has been made and what progress in the AI space.
Absolutely, and there are incredible options available to us on the market on both sides, right? I mean, you can talk about AI in something as simple as playlist creation in Spotify and discovering artists that way, or virality on TikTok and using motion and sound and location and content to disperse your content. On the industry side, we can look at things like Chartmetric and Sodatone and Instrumental that do a phenomenal job of harnessing so much data to try and give a holistic idea of an artist's career. The problem is it might not be the right data at that time. You know, we're talking about this data explosion, and the first step to really bridging that gap is to know when to use the data AI gives you at what point. I think that's probably the most important thing to take home.
And I think if we go on some specific instances, for example, with musicians, what specifically out there can musicians use to gain that?
There's loads. I mean, if you think about timelines, from the start, whether you're pursuing as an artist, whether you're pursuing a career as an independent artist or looking for a major label deal. Excuse me, guys, for our extremely reductive timelines. We recognize it's much more varied than this. But if you break it up into 3 sections, sort of the creation and production, the discovery and securing the deal, and then the monitoring, there are incredible things artists can do. So Audio Bridge uses AI to turn a piece of music essentially into Google Docs and enables worldwide collaboration in real time. There is automated mastering on a professional level.
And again, I think when you were talking earlier, again, looking at when you're modulation, I think the application of AI in cloud tools is almost endless. It's creating, especially given the circumstances we're in right now, where in different countries it's varying, but code is stopping artists from collaborating on the studio. Absolutely. Tools like Audio Bridge, tools like Lander are facilitating that collaboration much more than Zoom.
Oh, absolutely. Then, you know, in terms of the discovery portion of the whole timeline, you have tools like Andrson that put you in front of the industry, but you also have what are essentially marketing tools in Spotify and TikTok, whose technology part you rely on to deliver you to the right audience. Now, goes without saying that Spotify or TikTok themselves won't enable an independent artist to thrive on their music. You have to earn something like 675,000 streams a month to do that on Spotify. But to the extent they're marketing tools, they're probably the strongest thing in an artist's arsenal.
100%. I think it's that mindset shift of, again, what we're trying to hammer home here is the use of the right tool at the right time.
Exactly.
And understanding that Spotify isn't the be-all and end-all solution. Understanding that obviously tools like that but that used at the right time, they can leverage and they can result in serious ROI on both the musician and the industry side.
Absolutely. For the industry, especially after you've discovered an artist, is the right time to bring in all of their socials, all of their touring history, all of their playlist data, because it enables you to get a holistic image of their trajectory, right? That's vital. That is so worthwhile and informative that you have to be able to capitalize on it.
Absolutely. And beyond that as well, I think what's really interesting, you talked a little bit earlier about monitoring. I know you want to touch on a few, but I find really interesting with the likes of Shazam. To a lot of like consumers, Shazam is the tool that you use that's amazing. You're sitting in a cafe and it tells you what song it is. But when you look on the application of that on the industry side, artists who's been given an amazing opportunity with sync, getting their song in a major blockbuster movie, what's the return on the investment of that song? Shazam. Shazam is the best monitoring tool, especially with that new integration with Apple Music. It's allowing people to monitor that return on investment. I think that use of AI is just
absolutely, especially now as we're diversifying distribution streams and have all sorts of methods of consuming music, especially as an independent artist, that monitoring aspect is more important than ever before. So using tools in addition to the standard things that your royalty or rights management companies would provide. So for instance, WARM, who you can hear from after this, I think, so you're welcome, desperate for the plug, is worldwide radio monitoring, which is incredibly valuable, because if you think about how many micro royalties get lost in the shuffle,
100%.
It's absolutely incredible.
100%. And thank you, Annette, for letting me know that. I think, and I think when we're looking at how what will change, and in a Black Mirror world that some of us are fearful with the likes of Neuralink, how far will AI in music go? I think it's important to really drill down and ask that question.
Absolutely. So I think the answer to how do we actually now apply these tools to close this gap is two-sided. So for artists, to quote Tyler, the creator, it's beats, not tweets, right? You should be able to focus solely on your music, because ultimately that's what's going to get you there. With that, to focus on discovery tools is really, really important, because that's where industry is looking. On the industry side, there has to be a paradigm shift, and I think there is one starting now, where you consciously take a music-first approach, which means not looking at objective data at first, because to us and to the music industry, the music should be the only thing that matters. 100%. So, the right sort of data, as you guys just saw in that timeline.
And it's similar to what you're saying, where it's music-driven data, data-driven music, but also a little bit more holistically on the space is music industry solutions creating a tech format rather than tech solutions for the music industry.
Absolutely.
Solutions that work. And it's the same in every single market, where people are creating these AI tools and they think that they know the main space, and they think they know the music space. I think that's what's really, really important about music, is that they're similar to how we're talking about the tools being used at the right time, that when they're created for a very specific use.
Absolutely.
So that they can be maximized.
Absolutely. It leads to, better interactivity. It leads to industry-driven solutions, where there are decentralized discovery, which enables variation and more bands and musicians to be discovered organically. It leads to more varied consumption, because you're creating different markets, which in turn increases ROI. We're seeing now more deals with more diverse structures. So the industry has really tried to capitalize on every instance it sees to create value there. Now, theoretically, if that all comes together, that will increase streaming revenue. I think as legislation comes forth, streaming revenue will increase naturally, because they're going to be forced to pay people more. And ultimately, it results in saved time and money, right? And that's the definition of a closing gap, right? Time saved and money. Exactly.
100%. Well, we answered the question that everyone's going to be asking.
Which is what?
Well,
I think the answer to that is no. Outside of Neuralink, the most powerful tool in the music industry is the human ear, and I don't think anything will ever be able to replace that.
Absolutely. And again, to hammer home what we were trying to say today, facilitative tools for the industry professionals. Make their, again, save time, return investment. The facilitative tools allow them to do their jobs better. And it's that assistive use of AI rather than
prescriptive use of AI.
Prescriptive use, exactly. Of AI.
So I think with a minute left, we might want to just see if there are any questions. I think less than a minute, actually. Okay. So if anybody has any questions,
please pop it in there.
Thanks, Gene. Appreciate it. I think actually I can see it to get cut off. But like Neil said, if anybody has any questions, please feel free. I'll be hopping in and out of the conference all day today. Tweet us at Imagine Being Heard and we'll respond. And if you want to shoot us an email, I think both of our email addresses are in our profiles. Thank you guys very much for having us.
Thank you to all the UPPSTART team. Really, really appreciate it. And to everyone else, enjoy the rest of the conference.
Cheers, guys.